Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unlock a really powerful way to understand the Bible. I'm talking about a method that helps you move past just looking at single verses and finally see the entire breathtaking masterpiece. So, let's start with something I bet you felt before. Have you ever opened up the Bible, maybe to a random chapter, read a few verses, and, well, they might sound nice, but you're left with this feeling like you've just read one single, kind of disconnected page from a much, much longer letter? You know you're missing the bigger story. And, this analogy just nails it. It is exactly like walking into a movie an hour and a half late. I mean, you see the action, right? The car chases, you hear some dramatic lines, but you have absolutely no idea who these characters are or what the plot's even about. You might even come up with totally wrong ideas about what's going on. So what's the fix? Well, the solution is actually surprisingly simple. We just have to zoom out. We need to stop focusing on that single verse or even that one chapter and instead try to understand the purpose of the entire book it's sitting in. This is what we call book level context, and it's a total game changer. Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is what we call authorial purpose. And really all that means is the reason the author wrote the book in the first place. What problem were they trying to solve? What did they want their readers to walk away thinking or doing? Figuring this out is like finding the main idea for the whole work. All right, next up is the occasion. Now, this is the specific situation in history that, triggered the writing. It's the event that made the author think, okay, I need to write something about this. What was going on in the world or in that specific church that needed to be addressed right then and there. And the third piece is the literary structure. Think of this as the book's outline or its roadmap. Now, the biblical authors, they weren't just throwing ideas onto a page. They were deliberate artists. They organized their material very carefully to build an argument. And looking at that structure, it shows us their logic and it reveals what they really wanted to emphasize. Okay, so how do purpose and occasion relate? This slide makes it super clear. I love this analogy. Think of the occasion as the historical fire that broke out. Something happened. The purpose then is what the author decided to do about that fire. It's the difference between the catalyst, what started it all, and the goal, what they hoped to achieve. And here's the best part. We don't always have to play detective and try to guess the author's purpose. In a lot of cases, they come right out and tell us. It's incredible. Finding these purpose statements is like being handed the master key to unlock the entire book. Let's look at a few examples. We'll start with the Gospel of John. His purpose is pretty clear. It's evangelistic. He's building a case, trying to persuade his reader to believe. And look at this, right near the end of his book, John just says it outright. He basically says, look, Jesus did a ton of other things, but I selected these specific stories, which he calls signs, with one single goal in mind, so that you, the reader, might believe. I mean, the entire book is basically curated evidence presented to a jury, and he's asking for a verdict of faith. Okay, now let's compare that to Luke. He is also writing about Jesus, of course, but his goal, it's different. Luke is coming at this as a careful, meticulous historian. Right at the beginning, Luke tells this guy Theophilus that he has investigated everything carefully from the start to provide an orderly account. So his goal isn't necessarily to create that first spark of belief, but to give certainty to someone who's already been taught. His whole purpose is to show that the Christian faith is grounded in real, reliable, and you could even say verifiable history. All right, one more quick example, and this one's also from the Apostle John. But this time in his first letter, he's not writing to outsiders or seekers. He's writing to people already inside the faith. So his purpose is much more pastoral. And you've got to catch the critical shift here. His gospel was written so people might believe. But this letter, 1 John, was written so that those who already believe can know for sure that they have eternal life. His whole goal here is assurance. He's giving believers a set of tests to help them confirm that their faith is the real deal. Okay, so we've seen the individual pieces. Now let's put it all together and see how it works in a real case study, the book of Galatians. This is where you can really see the occasion, the purpose, and the structure just click. So what was the fire in Galatia? It was a full-blown crisis. Some false teachers had shown up in these churches, and they were teaching that faith in Jesus wasn't quite enough. They were insisting that Gentile believers also had to follow the Jewish law to be truly saved. So Paul's response, his purpose, was to write this passionate, urgent defense of the true gospel, that we are made right with God by faith and by faith alone. And check this out. This is where the structure becomes so important. The whole book is Paul's methodical, logical argument. First, in chapters 1 and 2, he defends where his gospel came from, directly from God. Then in chapters 3 and 4, he defends the theology behind it. And finally, in chapters 5 and 6, he defends the kind of lifestyle it produces. See? It's not just a random, angry letter. It's a unified, passionate, and incredibly logical defense of the gospel. So, what's the big takeaway here? This isn't just some interesting academic theory. No, this is a practical toolkit. It's something you can start using today to completely change how you read and understand the Bible. So here are 4 super simple steps you can take. First, before you dive into any book, just spend 5 minutes reading Introduction in a Good Study Bible. It'll give you the whole framework. Second, as you read, be on the lookout for a purpose statement from the author themselves. Third, try to get a bird's eye view of the book's structure, its main sections. And fourth, go back and reread a passage you thought you knew, but this time with all this new context in your mind. I promise you are going to be blown away by what you see. You see, understanding the big picture doesn't just give you more facts, it gives you new eyes. It equips you to see the purpose, the passion, and the brilliant logic behind every single book. It really does transform your reading from just staring at a single puzzle piece to finally seeing the stunning image on the box lid. So really, the only question left is, what book will you read first?